The other part of it is, trying to create generational access. And so I'm always working on opening doors for others. So that way I'm not the only one in the room.
Welcome to the You Are a Lawyer podcast, Chibundu Nnake. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Kyla?
I'm doing well. So this is a weird recording because I went to Ohio State with you at the same time, but we didn't know each other. I mean, the biggest school on campus, or the biggest school in the country at the time, right? We got out 2006. It was definitely bigger than UT Austin back then. Most people know you as Buns, and then you were homecoming king when I was in school. You've done all kinds of stuff. You played football for Ohio State, and I've been seeing you around. I remember meeting you at a Nabasa event in Austin, Texas, or maybe. So I was in law school 2012 through 15. So it was either in DC or Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, that tracks.
But anywho, what are you doing now? How did you become a lawyer? Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. No, yeah, officially, all of that. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is great. Love everything you're doing with the platform. What am I doing now? So in title, I am the lead privacy campaign manager at Google. And that just means that I coordinate our privacy campaigns at Google around states and at the federal level. So if something's happening that might negatively impact business, we alert folks, or folks alert us, and then we decide what threat level it is, and then we organize the campaign. And the campaign means I'm working with our lobbyists, internal and external, our marketing team on the policy side, our policy folks, our lawyers, and then some other strategy people and vendors. And so we do all that to figure out how we can help make some of these bills better.
Yeah. Okay. And so how did you become interested in privacy or working with Google with a tech company?
Being able to get at a name brand tech company was a goal of mine. And I thought this was going to happen like years down the line. And so I was at another company called NetApp before this. So Google obviously is, creme de la creme. It's hard to get into. It's a very present and omnipresent company. If someone doesn't know, like you probably, your podcast, you have YouTube. And so that's a part of Google, and people use Gmail or using search. And now people, even though it wasn't the first search company, people are like, oh, just Google it. Right. And so, but once I learned, like once you get into the tech space, then you become more attracted to other tech companies. And so once I was doing that at my previous job there, I was a lobbyist more or less, doing government relations. And so at that place, I was running campaigns, I was doing the lobbying, I was doing the policy. I was kind of doing everything that I'm kind of just coordinating now in that place. And so, there I learned more or less how to be a tech government relations lobbyist, whatever you want to call it. I had thought that was my first tech job. And then when I actually sat down and thought about it, I worked at AT&T while in law school. I was at Oracle post law school. And then I was at a software company called Lanyon that got bought by Cvent right outside of law school as well. So I've been in the tech space a decent amount, but so my third official tech job. Yeah.
And Oracle is just a little bit different. It's like Cisco. They're huge tech companies, but they're just not as commonly known like Google. Like you said, exactly. Everyone knows Google. Everyone knows Facebook and or Meta now. The name brand recognition is just completely different. So, all right, we got to go back a little bit. At Ohio State, were you thinking about going to law school, or where did law school come into play?
Yeah, I came to Ohio State with the understanding that I was going to be a lawyer. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. And so we were having career day in fourth grade, and this person came and talked to us about all of these careers. And so this one guy, he came and he was like the youngest person to make partner at his law firm. And I was like, law firm? So what's that? You're a lawyer? He's like, yeah, I'm a lawyer. So then that became my goal. I wanted to be a lawyer, and he made it sound very cool. So I was like, yeah, let's go do it. And so I kept writing in my journal. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? A lawyer. I want to be president. I want to be a lawyer. I want to play in the NFL. Those were the goals. So then after that, I got to Ohio State. I picked the major sociology, started looking at other things. Other things were interesting: political science, African-American studies, business. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, cool. Well, I still want to be pre-law. And so I kept like learning and being around people who were pre-law, doing the pre-law fraternity and all those things, trying to get my whole like coursework in line. so that I could be able to get ready for law school. So it was one of those things where when I was playing football, my coach, we were like, okay, I need to figure out how I can study for the LSAT and also go to practice. And he says, you know what? I know you're a walk on and I'm not probably giving you any knowledge that you don't know, but you're probably going to go pro in something that's not football. So let's focus on you pursuing those professional pursuits. And so I took the LSAT, didn't get a really good score. I decided to take some time off after I graduated to see if law was really what I wanted to do, or if it was just something that I've been telling myself for so long I want to do. So it was just like there. Took some time off, did some other things, worked in banking, retook the LSAT, got a substantially better score. And it was like, you know what? I really do want to go to law school, but I also want to pair it with business. And so I knew that wherever I was going to try to get the law degree as well as an MBA, and eventually got into SMU.
Wow. Okay, so that's fantastic. Did you know any lawyers? Well, because I'm trying to process the layers of it, right? So did you know lawyers before you saw that person speak at Career Day? Or was that truly your first introduction?
Truly first introduction. And it was kind of like almost a Yo Gotti song. You know, I like to argue, so all my family members wanted to send me to law school. And then I'm also Nigerian, so the joke is that you have three career options: a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. And so I kind of self-selected. I kind of picked to be a lawyer based on seeing that. And I saw some TV shows about lawyers, but I had never met a lawyer up until that point. And then even after that point, I don't remember knowing anybody who had like a family member or parent that was a lawyer.
So I got to say this real quick because my maiden name is Hemphill. So I married into a Ghanaian family. Listen, my husband left college early. He wanted to be like an astronaut or something. If he's listening, he's going to be like, that's not what I wanted. But he left early and his family ragged on him for so long. And I didn't get it, right? I'm from Columbus. My parents were like, you can do whatever. I was the first in my family to go to college. So they were like, you just graduated? I was already on top of the pedestal. And then I married into his family. And to this day, right, we are 40. His mom is like, you gonna finish college? Girl, we got whole lives. We have like, what do you, and she just, that's like the pinnacle for African families. Because I'm like, you are wildly successful. And she's like, you know what I want for Mother's Day? For you to finish your degree. Like, I am not finishing this degree.
God.
So I think it's really, I think it's really important that you mention that. In a Nigerian family, for you, your family expected you to do one of three things. And then you succeeded, but then you still wanted to do even more. I am really jealous because I did not have law school on my mind at all when I was at Ohio State. I actually went into Ohio State thinking I would be a chemical engineer.
Oh, wow.
Hated organic chemistry. Switched to poli-sci real quick. It was like, okay, what now, right? So I think it's fantastic that you had a plan and you followed it. But then also you played football. You are involved in so many different things. You were studying for the LSAT. Like most people want to do one successful thing, and it sounds like you've done multiple things. How did your family feel when you were like, look at me, I'm doing all this stuff, and now I'm going to Google?
It's funny because they always tell me I should slow down or I should pick one thing and stick to it and get really good at it or whatever that means. But I find that when I do stuff like that, I tend to get bored. And my friend who I'm in law school, she tells me that I'm not diagnosed, but I probably have ADHD. And it's just a matter of like doing a lot of things focuses me and helps me stay in tune and stay attentive. But yeah, they were, I would walked on to play football and like some family members were like, I don't know why you're doing this. You're not good enough to go pro. My mom was telling people that I was going to be in the NFL. And so there was like a mixed bag on the family side. And then when I told them I wasn't going to law school, some of them were calling me a failure, although I just graduated from college. And some of them were just like, there's only so much time in your 20s to try to find yourself. So please don't waste this time. And so when I took the 2 years off, one, I felt more rejuvenated. Two, I think I was able to better focus on why I was going to law school instead of just like, oh, I've told myself for this whole time I want to be a lawyer, but I didn't know why, right? And so I started, like, I had this thing that processed when I was in school. These are what all these lawyers and people who I've been meeting who are going to law school, here's why they do it. Here are all these issues related to society that are negatively impacted by the law. and how they're negatively impacted communities I grew up in, communities of color, and then also just specifically the Black community, right? And so having like that plan and then attaching a purpose to it, that helped me focus. And that generally is how I'm able to do a lot of these things. And so whether it's being the boss at chair while in law school, going to work at Google and them leaving, like, oh, I left this other tech company. Why are you leaving that other tech company? You haven't been there that long. Well, Google's a better opportunity or another opportunity for me to have a broader platform to be able to do a lot of things. With my friends and I in the area, we just started this organization called Diverse Tech Law, where we're trying to take and help lawyers, whatever kind of practice they're in, but help them transition and make the transition into a tech company or into the tech field, so that if you want to practice law, if you want to do something else but tech related, we're trying to help build a pipeline for that. Because I mean, AI, that's blown up, helped a lot of these companies do a lot of different things. But there's not a lot of us in tech, and especially a lot of lawyers in tech, who are able to help do like a lot of this governance or design. And so trying to get and build that pipeline. And then I'll be in Vegas in a couple of weeks at the National Bar Convention, also talking about AI and AI governance. So trying to just like do a lot of different things because that's the way my mind works.
Yeah. I think that's really important, though, the fact that you're creating this group within tech, because everyone has heard of the names of Google, but outside of maybe being a coder or a developer, I don't know what they do, but I'm sure Google has HR. They have to have legal, you know what I mean? They have food services. So even in the legal space, I think it's important that you're letting people know, hey, there's all kinds of things you can do. You don't have to be in a typical legal job, right? That's why this whole podcast exists. We do all kinds of things outside of the courtroom. Yeah. We use our legal education in all kinds of ways outside of the courtroom as well. Law students are either going to listen to this and be like, I don't get it. Everyone does that. Or they're going to listen and be like, oh, if he did it, I can do it. Right? Yeah. And so it's really important that you said that.
Yeah, and I think with the law, you can do all the typical things that you want to do. The law is a very amorphous, malleable vehicle. I think what's important is that you have a purpose and you're passionate about it, right? And you want to do something where you're going to wake up every day and at least have some kind of joy. I have joy being able to walk into the office, and I know that I'm working with a lot of the smartest people in the world. We're tackling issues that, world-changing, game-changing issues that can also negatively or positively impact communities that I'm a part of. That's part of it. The other part of it is, trying to create generational access. And so I'm always working on opening doors for others. So that way I'm not the only one in the room. I'm also thinking about creating generational access for my kids. LeBron James' son, Bronny James Jr., got drafted by the Lakers, people screaming nepotism. But then there's a show of all these folks who get jobs based on nepotism in sports. And that's because of access and being able to call that shot. And what LeBron's shown is that, when you have access and you have power and you use it in a certain way, some people might be mad, but this is historically what we've been doing, or what they've been doing and us just doing. And so for me, it's trying to create and generate more access so that I can just pull my kids in, pull communities in with me, and that way they can have access to my network. And so working in Google, get access that way, working at the highest throes of like empower Congress and the presidency, administration, getting access that way, and being able to say, okay, well, if my kid wants to do this, he can get a job in the Senate or in the White House at the age of 15 and do this, put that on his resume. Also, he can go intern at YouTube or Google or, do whatever and be able to have that kind of opportunity that I didn't have, that a lot of us didn't have, but then also he can call his own shot. And if he wants to go to law school, he can. If he doesn't want to graduate from college, he can. He can do whatever he wants, but he's seen a lot. He's been exposed to a lot where he can have an informed choice.
Yeah, that's a really good description, generational access, right, for your children, because what you said was really cool, but an Ohio girl, I'm like, even if you wanted to go and be like, hey, you recognize my last name, right? Like, because you cannot diminish the fact that you've been in all these different rooms, so you know all these different people.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, yeah, people are kind of upset about Bronny, but like everybody leans on somebody that they know, or at least you should. I went to law school in Louisiana. I'm from Ohio. When I moved back to Ohio, I'm calling people in Louisiana like, who in Ohio that's hiring? People do that. You probably are supposed to do that. That's how the world works. So speaking of different places, you said you're from Houston. You live in DC now. Mm-hmm. You went to school in Texas. What? Were you born in Nigeria? Were you born in Texas? What's the path?
Yeah, born in Texas. So the eldest son of two Nigerian immigrants. So first generation. Two younger brothers. One of my brothers is here this weekend. But yeah, born in Texas, moved to Houston, stayed in Houston until I was 18, went to Ohio State because they gave me more scholarship money than the University of Texas. Went back to Texas because, I want to, if you're from Texas, you have a lot of pride. And so I wanted to be back close to family, back in the area. Got into a really good law school, got into a good business school. So my brother worked for Obama's campaign and he wanted me to do it. I didn't do it. One of my regrets, but started working in politics because in the Boston, meeting a bunch of people in DC, started watching House of Cards, asked my friends, hey, is this how this works? I thought I was going to try to set myself up to like run for Congress or run for governor, on a presidential path. Decided to not do that, but I started working on a bunch of presidential campaigns and worked in Congress. And that was one of the things that helped me stay in DC or pulled me to DC. Got a fellowship in education to move to DC, and so that set it all up. Started working in education and then eventually transitioned to tech. But it was one of those things where I kind of just let things happen. And that's like atypical for me. I usually like to plan things, but I also wanted to be here just because of the energy and the environment. This city, when Obama was president, was a lot different and the energy was different. The people, he brought so many people into the administration that historically hadn't been in presidential administrations. And so, which is also what's changed the color of the lobbying folks as well. And so it was just a very different time. And now, I mean, this is probably me just being, used to being in DC, but it was one of those things where I moved here and because there weren't a lot of folks who I knew were married and all the people in Texas, they were married or had kids, they were doing that thing. And I wanted to be, a young degenerate.
When I think of DC, I just think of it as a really good eating city. There's so many great restaurants. I'm for real. It's like 6 hours from Ohio, but I used to drive there all the time and hang out with people. And I'm just like, it was some of the best eating I ever had. So you're being really humble with these political campaigns, right? You worked with Biden for president, Bernie 2020, Hillary for America. Are you being humble with it because you have done so many things? You're like, oh, that was just Hillary's campaign. Or are you truly like, you know what I mean? Like, do you pat yourself on the back? Like, I've done so much, but I still want to do so much.
Yeah, I think it's that. Like being able to want to be a senior strategist, be able to have access and then continue to help inform and shape what the party looks like, as well as what campaigns are looking like, policies are looking like. So it's kind of those things like continue to build out my network, continue to get access. But I also think I understand like the stuff that I've done and accomplished, but also I don't want it to be seen as I'm arrogant. I want to be approachable. I want people to be able to say, hey, we can go talk to Chibundu about whatever. If we want to get in politics, I can help you do that. If we want to get into tech, I can help you do that. If we want to get into law, I can help you do that. But less of oh, wow, I've done all these things. Let me puff out my chest, because I think a lot of people can do a lot of these things if they either want to or have the know-how or have the network. And so it's one of those things where I do, I look and see the things that I've accomplished, but also I want to do more.
Yeah. Okay. So the listeners of this podcast, it's about 70% young lawyers, like 5 years practicing or less. And then the other 30% is people that are just interested in career changes or maybe law students. What would you say to a law student about what they can do with their law degree?
Ooh, if you don't want to practice law, you can get access. You can get all of this information other places. But if you're already in school and you're wrapping up and you decide that you don't want to do like practice law, I would say you can do whatever you want with your law degree. The law degree, it's a different kind of weight. Like it shows that you're able to do a hard thing that although a lot of people do it, it's a very small lot of people. That's like a medical degree. Like, oh, wow, you did that. That shows a level of intellect. And so a lot of people assign weight to that. It assigns credibility on what you're able to do. And so people will throw hard things at you. So if you're looking for a job where it requires problem solving, critical thinking, writing, public speaking, people, if you have a law degree on there, they will like say, oh yeah, this person can do all of those things just because you have a JD or you have law school on your resume. That being said, I think you also need to develop a functional skill area. I thought the same thing. Okay, I have a law degree. I have an MBA. I'm doing this. And so I was in an interview. I was trying to use some words to be an ED for an organizing organization. And the gentleman said, okay, we're not going to give you the job, but let's go get drinks. We went and got drinks and he talked to me. He's like, hey, what are you trying to do? Because right now you have all these different skills, but you don't have necessarily a functional skill set that you can sell people. And he was right. I could do some fundraising. I could do some advocacy. I could do some writing. But what was like my functional skill set that I would be able to sell and tell people this is what I do? Now that skill set is advocacy. So I've been able to build that out. That conversation was the impetus for it. So if you don't want to practice law, and you want to use your JD to do something else, you can do whatever. You just need to find out what that competitive advantage you have that's not the law degree. The law degree adds the credibility, but what is that thing that you can do well, better than others, for the people to narrow down and pick you for the job? What is that thing that you do well that makes sense, that you can tell the person in your interview, yes, pick me? And so just think about that. But yeah, y'all can do whatever you want, especially in this day and age where access to information is so like accessible.
Yeah, truly, truly. I wish someone had told me that I could learn how to advocate without going to law school, because I definitely would have done that. Like, I grew up, cheering for the underdog, but I didn't realize law school wasn't going to teach me that. Law school was completely different.
Right.
So also for the young lawyers, let's say I'm a 6-year associate and I'm like, is this all there is? What advice would you have for them about what they can do with their degrees?
Yeah, don't be afraid to pivot. I've done a couple of career pivots in my short time, working in education, working in politics, working in tech, working in government relations, and doing all this other stuff. So don't be afraid to pivot. Always continue to upskill. So let's say you're doing employment law. If you want to do tech, I think you can do that. So you can either go HR for a tech company doing that, or you can say, okay, well, I know how to critically think and I know how to apply these employment issues. Okay, what do I want to do in tech? It's not that hard to go get certified as a privacy lawyer or a privacy professional and get the IAPP has certain certifications. If you want to do cyber, I'm going to work on trying to get a couple cyber certifications done by the end of the year as well. Like, always think about how you can upskill or reskill or add skills that will be attractive to whatever you're trying to do. But if you don't want to be a lawyer or you don't want to practice law, don't be afraid to pivot, because happiness always should be priority. You should think about, your bottom line, think about how much you're making, all of those things. But I found that in all of my career moves and changes and pivots, I've been able to grow my salary, whatever, pretty exponentially, just based on me not being afraid to do a pivot or it being afraid to push myself into a different category or area.
Yeah, and not being afraid to be honest. Right? And say, okay, I did this for 6 years. What else? Right?
Yes.
It feels like a long time, but it's not. You got a lot of years still coming up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think going back to just being honest and trying to do your best to know yourself. I think some people want to be a lawyer because their parents did it. Some people want to be a lawyer because they've already signed up for the classes. Some people want to be a lawyer because they truly want to change the world. And all of those things are fine, but I think it's, remembering your why and your purpose and making sure that you're honest with yourself and knowing like who I am and what I do. Like me, I know that I'm a scatterbrain. I like to do a bunch of different things and have an impact for communities and my family. And so I'm always trying to think about what ideas can I do to be able to do those things. And so knowing yourself, that's going to afford you the opportunity to be, one, your most authentic self, two, know what environments you thrive in and know what types of areas you'll be interested in, and try those out, because you won't know you don't like it until you don't. So for the young lawyers, for the old lawyers, for the folks in law school, that would be my advice. Just continue to do that and network. I've been able to achieve a lot because I know a lot and I know a lot of people and I continue to network. And so build up your network, like reach out to folks on LinkedIn. If you see me, find me on LinkedIn, reach out. I love to grab Zooms, coffees, all of those things if you're in the area.
And networking is really important, because I was just going to say, I think now you are in my network, not only as Ohio State alums, but like we're both lawyers. When you're in law school, you feel like that's all there is. And then you get out and you're like, oh, there's people outside of law. Like, you'll always be collecting people is the wrong way to say it, but you'll always be introduced to more people, right? And enlarging your circle. Your circle will keep expanding. Okay.
Yes.
That's the best way to say it. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the You Are a Lawyer podcast. I will make sure I have Chibundu's information in the episode notes. If you have any questions for me, reach out to Kyla at youarelawyer.com, and we will talk to you later.
Bye. Thank you for having me.